We are completing our 14th weekend, and today we are having our 28th class in quantum psychotherapy. Yesterday we looked at quantum leadership, so today we are looking at the quantum leadership model based on the 0 point. So the rapidly shifting landscape of the 21st century, characterized by volatility, uncertainty, and complexity and ambiguity, has rendered traditional Newtonian mechanistic leadership models obsolete. Modern organizations can no longer be managed as rigid top-down machines. In response, quantum leadership model has emerged as a holistic paradigm that views organizations as living, interconnected systems. And at the pinnacle of this model lies the 0 point concept. Tapping into the 0 point field, leaders move beyond transactional management to foster profound innovation, authenticity, and sustainable success. So traditional leadership thrives on predictability, control, and separation, while quantum leadership views organizations as entangled, where actions in one part of the system impact another instantly. So the 0 point field, that zero shape, zero form, zero motion, zero ego, zero polarity, and zero duality, it is an energy existing in everything, and it is everything. We are zero energy point too. And we can also access the infinite possibilities stored within the 0 point field. We need to be in a state of nothingness, that void, that emptiness that is full of everything, that stillness, that silence, that centeredness. This is the emptiness where bliss resides, where overthinking and over-worrying will not exist. It's the lowest possible energy state in the quantum system, a sea of energy that persists even in absolute vacuum or at absolute zero temperature. And it is a state of emptiness, but it isn't a state of emptiness, but rather a quantum froth of constant fluctuation, representing the potential for all possibilities, a quantum vacuum full of fluctuating fields, virtual particles popping in and out of existence. This is very rich. And in the context of leadership, the 0 point represents a state of being rather than doing. And the leader acts from a state of least resistance, from a state of authenticity, and from a state of deep awareness, not forced effort. The quantum leadership model, based on the 0 point field, is more than a management style. It is a shift in consciousness. And it asks leaders to stop seeing themselves as mechanics of a machine and start seeing themselves as architects of a field. So by tapping into the stillness of the 0 point, you as a leader, you can navigate chaos with grace, turning a world of volatility into a landscape of infinite opportunity. It's a modern management paradigm that applies principles of quantum physics, especially the 0 point field, to organizational behavior. And while traditional leadership that is Newtonian views an organization as a predictable machine with separate parts, this quantum model views an organization as a living, interconnected field of infinite potential. And the quantum leadership model shifts the leader from being a driver of results to being the source of the field, where leadership isn't an action taken, but a frequency that is held. As a quantum leader, when you lead from the 0 point, the state of no thing, nobody, and no self, you are operating from the vacuum of infinite potential rather than the friction of egos. As the 0 point leader, you are orchestrating potential in a quantum age. This quantum age that is 100 years old now. Traditional leadership is built on a Newtonian foundation where the organization is a machine and the leader is the operator of that machine, and results are predicted through linear cause and effect. As global complexity accelerates, this rigid model is failing, and emerging in its place is the quantum leadership model, a framework rooted in the 0 point field. And this model shifts the focus from managing things to facilitating potential. And why? Because 0 point is infinite potential. And in quantum physics, 0 point field is the lowest possible energy state, yet it contains an infinite sea of background energy and information. And in leadership, it represents that state of pure presence. And it is the silent space from which all innovation and vision emerge. So, as a quantum leader, you understand that before any action is taken, there exists a field of infinite possibilities. And maintaining a 0 point mindset as a leader, you free from past biases and rigid expectations, and you stay open to non-linear solutions that a purely logic mind may miss. And you operate from the observer effect with intentionality. Because in the quantum world, the act of observation collapses a wave of possibility, into a specific particle of reality. And you, as a quantum leader, you recognize that your focus is a creative force. If you observe your team through the lens of deficit and mistrust, you will be collapsing the team's potential into that low-performing reality. However, by holding a high frequency intention, you as the leader, and observing the team's inherent brilliance, you help manifest a more vibrant, high-performing organizational reality. And you view the office as the quantum field. So this means leadership isn't about a person, it is about the field created between people in that very office, in that very organization. So Newtonian leadership relies on hierarchy and distance. Quantum leadership relies on entanglement and systemic resonance. In the 0-point field, everything is interconnected. And a change in one part of the field is felt instantaneously by the rest. And the leader's internal state, your internal state as a leader, your integrity as a leader, your calm and clarity isn't a private matter. You oze it out into the organization from your signature of your aura that has that 0-point coherence. And that which you are in your aura resonates through the entire organizational field. So when you, as a leader with that signature, leading from the 0-point means moving away from command and control towards resonance and alignment, where the goal is to synchronize the energy of the collective towards a shared purpose. As a quantum leader, are you ready to embrace the void of that uncertainty, that ambiguity, that unknown? Because finally, the quantum leadership model redefines uncertainty. In a linear model, uncertainty is a risk to be mitigated. However, in the quantum model, uncertainty is the natural state of the 0-point field. It is the fertile ground of the not yet known. So as a quantum leader, you are not struggling for control. Instead, you are becoming comfortable in that void, knowing that it's the only place where true transformation can occur. In that void, in that emptiness, in that nothingness, in that uncertainty, in that ambiguity, in that unknowing, that's the only place where true transformation can occur. And as a quantum leader, you understand this. And you trade rigid strategic plans for agile emergence, allowing the organization to pivot as quickly as the information in the field begins to shift. So now let us look at the key components of the shift from traditional model to the quantum leadership model. From position to presence. Authority is no longer just a title-based status, but a signal-based and by resonance, vision, and alignment. And as a quantum leader, you understand that your actions have a probabilistic ripple effect across the entire organization. And rather than fighting chaos with strict control, you as a quantum leader use that risk. Use that chaos as fertile soil for insight, managing the tensions within the system. Traditional leadership focuses on what a leader does, the KPIs. Quantum leaders focus on who the leader is being. So as a quantum leader, you are focusing on who you are being, not what you are doing. And as you focus on what you are being, your being is based on 3 internal dimensions and how they manage and how you manage the internal and the external distractions to remain fully present, able to sense the future that wants to emerge in the current moment, in that stillness. Not just reacting to past data. You are shifting from a self-focused to a system-focused mindset. So the key aspects of quantum leadership model include your leaders deeply understanding of your own self, your strengths, your biases, and your emotional triggers to foster trust and collaboration. And this is conscious self-awareness. That is one of the key aspects. So as a quantum leader, you view the organization as a living networked system rather than a machine with all parts of an organization deeply connected as entangled particles are. So interconnectedness and entanglement is another key aspect. And as a quantum leader, rather than eliminate risk and ambiguity, you thrive on the edge of chaos, seeing it as a source of creativity, seeing chaos as a source of innovation, and seeing chaos as a source of opportunity. And that is another aspect, embracing uncertainty and chaos. And as a quantum leader, you prioritize meaning over mere metrics. And you aim to foster employee engagement by aligning work with higher values. And that is another key aspect, purpose-driven and human-centric. So let's look at the quantum leadership model that aligns with the quantum leadership 12 principles, and the 3 pillars of this quantum model. Quantum leadership, as defined by Dana Zohar, maps human consciousness in 12 principles that mirror the characteristics of a complex adaptive system. And these 12 principles are referred to as the pillars of spiritual intelligence, SQ, to foster a positive value-driven environment. And Dana Zohar's quantum leadership model moves away from machine metaphor, and the entire model of Dana Zohar is built on 3 fundamental pillars of the model. And these 3 fundamental pillars of the model, the first one is spiritual intelligence, SQ. The second is quantum thinking, the new logic. And the third is quantum management, the living system. So let's look into spiritual intelligence. And this is the 0 point of Dana Zohar's model. And while IQ, rational, and EQ, emotional, are about how we think and feel, SQ, which is spiritual intelligence, is about why we do what we do. And the 0 point link is that spiritual intelligence requires the leader. It requires you as the quantum leader to get deep into the silence to find your core value or your core values. And a leader with a high SQ, spiritual intelligence, is field independent. You don't bend to the chaos of the crowd because they are anchored in their chaos. Instead, you as this quantum leader with this spiritual intelligence, you are anchored in your higher truth, in your core values. What could be your core values right now as a quantum leader with that spiritual intelligence? The second fundamental pillar of the quantum leadership model is quantum thinking, the new logic. And this pillar replaces linear, either or Newtonian logic with a holistic both and mindset. Both and mindset. It recognizes that the world is not a collection of separate parts or atoms, but the world is a web of relationships viewed as waves. So the 0 point link here is that as a leader, as a quantum leader, practicing quantum thinking, you stay in the superposition of possibilities. And you don't rush into a binary right answer. You allow the best solution to emerge from the void of uncertainty. The third is quantum management, the living system. And this pillar focuses on the structure of the organization. It shifts from a rigid top-down hierarchy to a self-organizing adaptive network. So like a quantum field, an organization that you head is a living system constantly evolving. And your job as a quantum leader isn't to control people. It is to provide the coherent field that vision and then step back. And this requires radical humility. You, as the quantum leader, you trust that when the members of staff hold the frequency of the vision, the team will naturally self-organize into the most efficient form. So as we come to the end of this presentation, let's look at the 12 principles of quantum leadership as defined by Dana Zohar. And the first one is self-awareness, knowing your internal comfort and your internal compass and motives as a quantum leader. So as a quantum leader, understanding your own values, your own motivations, and your own biases involves knowing what you truly care about and what drives your behavior. And this principle of self-awareness relates to the fact that complex adaptive systems are self-organizing and that quantum systems spontaneously reorganize as their environments change. So quantum leaderships are emergent, furthering the natural direction of the field towards creating ever more order and information. The second principle is spontaneity. And spontaneity means living and being responsive to the present moment. And it requires letting go of past baggage and assumptions to adapt quickly to new situations. To be an authentic person or to lead an agile company, you as a quantum leader, you have the capacity for spontaneous response. You are seeing the world through the eyes of a child. Spontaneity is not the same as acting on whim or acting on impulse. Because acting on a whim or acting on an impulse involve not thinking at all. Spontaneity is a feature of adaptive thinking. Spontaneity corresponds with bounded instability of complex adaptive systems existing only at the edge of chaos. And in a zone of instability, you are able to maintain flexibility necessary to respond and adapt spontaneously, creatively to changes in your environment. We might not be there yet, but we are glad we are no longer where we used to be. The third principle is holism or holistic thinking. And this refers to seeing the big picture and the interconnectedness of all things. And every part of a system is related to every other part. And complex adaptive systems are holistic. There is no internal boundaries. There is no recognizably separate parts. And the same is true for quantum systems. Holistic thinking is the ability to see larger patterns relationships, and connections between things. Being sensitive to the relations at play in a situations and building good quality relationships, that sense of belonging to the whole, that sense of seeing yourself and your organizations as systems, as parts of a larger system. There is no isolation. There is no separation. It is interconnectedness. So knowing that everything is connected to everything and that you as a quantum leader, you are connected to everything and to everyone. So realizing that there is no such a thing as separation and acting accordingly. That is a state of being of a quantum leader. And knowing that everything you do and every decision that you make has consequences for yourself and for others and for the entire organization. And seeing that every question has at least two sides, and that there is an underlying wholeness within the differences. That ability to see the infinite within the finite, that ability to see deeper currents or deeper patterns within events and situations, that ability to see the energy beneath the physical aspects of everything that is happening within the organization. The fourth principle is compassion. And this is moving beyond mere empathy to feel with others. It's an essential quality for building high quality relational energy within a team. That ability to experience what others may be feeling or going through. Having a desire where possible to make the team's circumstances less burdensome, less painful for their sake. Knowing that you are one with them. Knowing that you as a leader, you are them. And feeling this common human bond, some understanding even of those who are your enemies, or those that do not resonate well with you, or those that feel as a threat to you. You are making forgiveness possible. Showing others respect and taking care of their dignity. Treating others as you would like yourself to be treated. The principle of compassion resonates with the quality of complex adaptive systems, being adaptive in a co-creative dialogue with the environment of the organization. The principle of compassion also resonates with the contextual nature of quantum systems, being and identity. The fifth principle is celebration of diversity. And this means valuing people for their differences rather than despising them, engaging in passionate dialogue with those who hold different views, and using diverse perspectives to fuel innovation. Recognizing that truth is multifaceted, infinite, and thus, in many circumstances, there is no one best way. It is the ability to challenge your own assumptions and preferences, and celebration of diversity corresponds with the system's reliance on evolutionary mutations for transformation of the entire organization. So quantum thinking allows us to hold two seemingly opposing beliefs or ideas and appreciate that both can be true. The sixth principle is humility. And this is balancing field independence by recognizing your place in the larger scheme of things. It includes your willingness to ruthlessly question yourself and admit when you are wrong. Realizing that others also know things too, and that no one person can ever know it all. So, as quantum leaders, knowing when we are out of our depth and being willing to seek help or advice. Being willing to acknowledge and respect the expertise of others. Being willing to trust others. Not always having to be the best, not always having to be the boss, and not always being the one to know it all. The principle of humility relates to the property of complex adaptive systems, that every element of the system is important and necessary, and each element depends on every other element. It also relates to the fact that the quantum universe is a participatory universe. The light shines to everybody, not to one individual. The seventh principle is field independence. And this is the courage to stand by our convictions as quantum leaders, even when we are unpopular. And it means relying on the internal cues rather than just following the crowd to follow our own convictions. This means that we have to have the strength and the courage to do what is right, even if everyone is telling us that it is wrong. To have the resilience to be unpopular, not to bend if we are mocked or excluded. To stay true to our principles in the face of temptation or criticism. Or is to be self-critical, to be on guard against our own pride, and to tap to guard against the trap of our own thinking. This protects us from fanaticism and gives us a reality check. So field independence relates to the fact that The creativity of complex adaptive systems is destroyed by outside control. And if controlled from outside, we lose our self-organization and revert to being Newtonian systems. The eighth principle is positive use of adversity. And this means having the resilience to learn from mistakes and setbacks and turning problems into opportunities. And the ninth principle is tendency to ask fundamental why questions. And this is maintaining a spirit of inquiry, learning, and curiosity to understand causes and reasons behind things and to challenge established norms to find a deeper meaning. The 10th principle is ability to reframe. And this means seeing a problem or situation from a new perspective or a wider context. And this allows us as quantum leaders to think outside the box and invent a new paradigm, because reframing corresponds to the fact that complex adaptive systems recontextualize their environment, and quantum systems develop new emergent properties through relationship. The 11th principle is a sense of vocation and purpose. Feeling called to serve a purpose larger than ourselves. And the 12th principle is vision and value-led. Acting from deep principles and beliefs, where leadership is guided by a clear why and an aspiration to make a meaningful difference. The question I'm leaving with you today: which of Donna Zohar's 3 pillars and which of Donna Zohar's 12 principles will you incorporate in your leadership style as a quantum leader? I hope you've learned something from today's presentation as a quantum leader who operates from that point of the 0-point field of stillness, where you hold a coherent signature from your aura. Have a blessed evening. Namaste.